in KTN News Center.
Thank you, Brenda.
And this year's theme is Hunger World Free by 2020.
Yes, it is hunger free by 2020. And indeed, we are also saying that our actions, our future. So it means that what we do now will determine whether that dream is achievable by 2030. And I just want to start by mentioning that our World Vision Kenya is appreciative of the fact that as we speak, Kenya is in food deficit situation. The statistics are worrying really because 1 in 3 of every Kenyan is chronically suffering from inaccessibility to food. Mm-hmm. We have got 30% of our children who are stunted and therefore are not able to achieve the child well-being that they desire in life. Mm-hmm. And approximately 14.3 million Kenyans, as we speak, are food insecure. Mm-hmm. Now you may ask that why are we talking about excess maize, for example, now, yet we are also talking about food insecurity. That is exactly why World Food Day, this is the 73rd anniversary. Every government, almost over 100 governments worldwide, mm-hmm. committed to make sure that we put our efforts together so that those who are not able to access food mm-hmm. are able to realize this dream by 2030.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Nga, from your explanation, what you're painting a grim picture in the sense that as we speak right now, even as Kenya joins the rest of the world in celebrating this important day, we are food insecure.
Yes, that is the truth of the matter. But against that grim picture, there is also hope. And I just want to mention a few things why there is hope. Mm-hmm. We talk about redoubling our efforts. And if you look at the priority of the government, mm-hmm. especially the Big Four agenda, food security as one of the critical pillars is an area that if we focus our energy on, then we can be able to achieve this dream. Why do I say this? We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We've seen countries that have been food insecure, and as we speak, they are now a food surplus. Mm-hmm. What we need is leadership, and as World Vision Kenya, we are happy that we are part of partners that are insisting on instilling leadership mm-hmm. to make sure that we use our resources, our potential as a country mm-hmm. to achieve our food security.
Okay, and as much as you're talking about food insecurity in the country, mm-hmm. what is making the country to be food insecure, apart from just from the change of weather, the climate change?
Mm-hmm. Yes, there are quite a number of issues. I just want to talk about a few critical ones. One is that our policies, the policies that, surround food security, they have not been very friendly. Mm-hmm. Some of them are not capable, of increasing food production, of ensuring that we have got sustainable markets mm-hmm. that stabilizes food prices, mm-hmm. that also ensures that we've got adequate capacity to distribute food all over the country. And that is why, as we speak, we find that some parts of the country could be having surplus maize, for example, now, while other parts of the country are not able to access the maize. Mm-hmm. The other issue is about our food preferences and lifestyles, because traditionally we believe that when you talk about food security, you talk about maize. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you, Brenda, that world all over, for example, China, with billions of people, they're able to feed their people. Why? They have realized that there are other aspects of food that are sustainable. Mm-hmm. When I grew up, I knew that eating insects was one of the best things that we ever did, and we are healthy. And so our lifestyles, our food preferences are something that we really need to reevaluate.
So it's like we need to expand the variety of food that we eat. But when you talk about expanding, mm-hmm. the people, like what you're saying, okay, you call them insects, and I believe our brothers and sisters from the Western call them the termites, and
Yes.
there's so many people who eat it.
Sure.
The people who feel like, I cannot eat that. I just can't.
Yeah, and that's why we need to face reality.
Yeah.
Because we need to ask ourselves, why do these people feel they can't eat it? It's simply because of cultural issues, simply because of lack of information and knowledge. Because if I know the impact that, lack of nutritious food has on my child, like you as a mother, probably, you'd be very quick to go and embrace, simple, low-cost initiatives that can make your child, grow. And so basically we need to really advocate about sensitizing our population, giving them facts and figures, and also being role models. Because if we ourselves cannot be able to eat insects and diversify our food sources, do we expect others to do it? So we really need to be, take leadership and sensitize our communities.
Okay, let's bring the aspect of GMO.
Yes.
Because the issue of GMO, it was very debatable in the country some years back, with some opposing introduction of GMO, some supporting. So with the introduction of GMO, can you say it can also ensure that the country is food secure?
Knowledge is very powerful, Brenda, and informed knowledge. As a food security expert, and I believe I'm preaching to the people who should be converted. GMO or food biotechnology science has been tested, and it has been found to be safe. And therefore, when we talk about countries that have moved from chronic food insecurity to food security, some of the things that they have invested heavily is on science, and GMO is one of them. So as a country, what we need to understand is that as far as we might have people who have not embraced this technology, we need to make sure that safety and regulations are strengthened, and the responsibility is to strengthen the institutions, our research institutions, and once this is done, then basically we will be able to embrace GMO. Because as we speak, climate change that you just mentioned, resistant pests, problems with the crop cycles, water use efficiency, all those answers. GMO is an answer, and so we have no way but to really embrace this technology.
Okay, and as Kenya joins the world in celebrating World Food Day today, what should our focus be on?
I would say that one, we've got a sizable youth population. And majority of our youth are employed, but they're the most energetic people who can drive this economy. So one is that as a country, we need to really look, how do we strengthen and how do we introduce policies that are youth-friendly in agribusiness. One other thing that we need to understand is that the private sector is a great player in our economy. So partnership is very key. If you look at some of the notable successes that we have realized so far, issues to do with water harvesting technology, for example, issues to do with information and awareness, private sector plays a very big role. And so as a country, we need to put our hands together and see how can we bring in investment, especially in agriculture technology, and also policies that are able to make our food security outlook be sustainable. The other thing that I also want to mention is that safety and security, because you realize that we've been talking about National Cereals and Produce Board. Farmers have produced food because the weather has been very favorable, but they don't have a place to store the food. So again, as a country, we really need to relook at our storage capacity. How are we able to store our food? And commensurately, how are we able to improve our structure to make sure that we distribute this food very quickly whenever there's a glut, so that every part of the country is able to access this food? And of course, lastly, I would also talk about a very critical aspect, that is value addition. And when I talk about value addition, the quick thing and the quick wins that we need to look into is how do we harness our markets, marketing system? Because we are in a situation where farmers produce food, yes. We give them incentives, yes. But after that, they are with excess food and they don't know where to take it. Mm-hmm. And then after a few months, middlemen come in, they exploit them, and they're back to food insecurity. Yeah. So how do we make sure that we put in favorable conditions that can stabilize markets, mm-hmm. so that they can have enough to eat and also surplus to sell for income to utilize for other household needs?
Okay, and when you talk about the government working with stakeholders, there has been concern that year in, year out, when there's climate change, there's droughts, the country tends to rely on donors and private sector. Let's talk about like the human, like the Red Cross to help distribute food, call on Kenyans to collect money, to buy food, to distribute.
I would say that every player has got a critical role in food security. And this is coming from the fact that if you look at our country, we have got different fragility indices. There are areas that are very fragile, not because of anything, but because of, our actions as human beings, and also our inactions probably. So the fact that the government works with other players in terms of ensuring food security, mm-hmm. in itself is not bad. But the issue is, are we building the capacity of households to be resilient? Mm-hmm. Because for sure, climate shocks, disasters will come, mm-hmm. but how are we prepared that when they come, we are resilient, And so what I would want to say, Brenda, is that what the other humanitarian organizations play, mm-hmm. is just to make sure that progressively we get more and more of our households being resilient.
Okay.
And so that if the shocks come,
mm-hmm.
then the government will not, have a lot of challenges, mm-hmm. in addressing the situation.
Okay.
So it is basically to minimize the impact.
Okay, thank you so much, James Singao, a food expert from World Vision, talking to us about the World Food Day that we celebrate.